Hello, my dear friends. Take a slow breath in and let it out gently. Allow your shoulders to soften. Allow the day to slowly fade away. Tonight we are traveling far back in time, not to a world of comfort, not to a world of ease, but to a world that was powerful, beautiful, and incredibly hard to live in. Tonight we are visiting ancient Egypt. Many people imagine ancient Egypt as a land of golden temples, calm rivers, and peaceful daily life. But the truth is much quieter, much heavier, and far more demanding. For most people, life in ancient Egypt was exhausting, strict, and unforgiving. Survival required strength, obedience, and constant effort. Comfort was rare, rest was limited, and the body was always under pressure. As you listen, imagine you are waking up in ancient Egypt. There is no soft bed beneath you. There is no quiet room. The air is already warm, the sun is already rising, and the day is already demanding your energy. You have not even stood up yet, and the work has already begun. Let us take a slow walk through this world and gently explore why most modern people would struggle to last even a single day here. In ancient Egypt, life was ruled by the sun. When the sun rose, the day began, whether the body was ready or not. There were no late mornings, no extra sleep, no quiet rest. People woke early because the heat grew stronger with every hour. The body learned to move quickly before the sun became too harsh. Sleep was short and often interrupted, not because of stress alone, but because the environment demanded it. Homes were simple. Most people lived in small mud brick houses with very little space. Rooms were dark and crowded. Furniture was minimal. Floors were hard. Insects were common. Privacy barely existed. Families slept close together, not for comfort, but because space was limited. At night, sounds from outside never fully stopped. Animals, wind, and voices moved through the darkness, making deep rest difficult. Water came from the Nile, but access to clean water was not effortless. Carrying water was daily work, heavy and repetitive. Food was simple and depended on harvests. Bread, vegetables, and beer formed the base of most meals. Meat was rare. Hunger was common, especially for workers and farmers. The body worked hard on very little fuel. Work itself was physical and endless. Farmers worked the land under the sun for long hours. Builders carried stone, sand, and tools with bare hands. Craftsmen sat for hours in uncomfortable positions. Even children worked, learning labor early in life. There were no days off in the modern sense. The body was used fully every day, and exhaustion was normal. Disease was everywhere. There were no doctors as we understand them today. Injuries healed slowly. Infections were dangerous. Teeth decayed. Pain was accepted as part of life. Most people lived with constant discomfort, aches, and illness, continuing to work because stopping was not an option. Religion shaped everything. The gods were powerful and obedience was expected. People believed their behavior affected not just their lives, but the balance of the universe itself. Fear of divine punishment added mental pressure to already hard lives. Rituals, rules, and duties were constant. Life was not just physically demanding, but emotionally heavy. As you imagine standing in this world, feel how overwhelming it would be. The heat, the work, the lack of rest, the constant demand on the body. This is why most modern people used to comfort and choice would struggle deeply in ancient Egypt. As the night grows quiet now, let this image soften. You do not need to hold on to it. In the next part, we will gently explore sleep, rest and nighttime life in ancient Egypt, and why even nighttime offered very little relief. For now remain still. Let the quiet deepen. Let rest continue in its own time. Imagine the sun rising slowly over ancient Egypt, not gently but with a growing heat that begins to press down on the land almost immediately. This heat is not something you can escape or manage easily. There are no fans, no shade structures everywhere, and no way to cool the body once the day has begun. From the moment you wake, the warmth is already present, settling into your skin and staying there. Clothing is light, but it does little to protect you from the constant exposure. Sweat forms quickly, and dehydration begins long before the day feels halfway done. This heat alone would be enough to exhaust a modern body that is used to comfort and control. Daily work in ancient Egypt did not pause because of weather. Farmers, builders, and laborers continued their tasks under the open sun for hours at a time. Bodies moved slowly, not because people were lazy, but because conserving energy was the only way to survive. Even simple tasks demanded effort. Carrying water, lifting tools, walking across sand, or standing in the sun drained strength quickly. There was no expectation of rest when the body felt tired. Fatigue was normal, pain was common. The body was expected to continue anyway. Food, which might seem rich and plentiful in images of ancient Egypt, was actually very limited for most people. Meals were simple and repetitive, often consisting of bread and small amounts of vegetables. Meat was rare and usually reserved for special occasions. Hunger was not dramatic, but it was constant. The stomach was rarely full, and energy levels stayed low. Without modern nutrition, the body lacked what it needed to recover fully from daily labor. Weakness built slowly, day after day. Water, despite the presence of the Nile, was not always clean or easily available. Drinking water could make people sick, and illness was common. Without medical knowledge, even simple stomach problems could become serious. The body had to fight infections constantly, often without success. A modern person, unfamiliar with these conditions, would struggle quickly as dehydration, illness, and exhaustion combined. Sleep offered little relief. Nights were cooler but not comfortable. People slept on hard surfaces, often close together, surrounded by insects and noise. Rest was shallow. The body never fully recovered from the day's strain. Morning arrived quickly, bringing heat and labor again. There was no concept of recovery days or rest weekends. Life moved in a continuous cycle of effort and fatigue. As you imagine this day unfolding, notice how overwhelming it feels without being dramatic. There is no sudden disaster, no single breaking point, just constant pressure on the body. This is one of the main reasons why you wouldn't last a day in ancient Egypt. Not because of danger or violence, but because the environment itself demanded endurance that modern life no longer prepares us for. As the heat of this imagined day begins to fade into evening, allow the image to soften. You do not need to stay here. Let your body remain still. Let your breathing slow gently. In the next part, we will calmly explore disease, injury, and the lack of medical care, always slowly, always softly. For now, remain still. Let the night grow quiet, let rest continue in its own time. Imagine the sun rising slowly over ancient Egypt, not gently, but with a heavy warmth that already presses against the body before the day has even begun. Life here does not ease into morning. It demands movement early, because once the sun climbs higher, the heat becomes almost unbearable. For most people, work begins as soon as there is enough light to see. There are no comfortable mornings, no quiet starts. The body wakes already tired, knowing the day ahead will be long, physical, and unavoidable. This alone is one reason why surviving even a single day would feel overwhelming to a modern person. Most Egyptians worked with their bodies, not their minds. Farmers, builders, laborers, and servants spent hours bending, lifting, carrying, and walking under the open sky. There were no machines to ease the load. Every task relied on muscle and endurance. Stone blocks were dragged by hand. Fields were worked with simple tools. Water was carried in heavy containers from the Nile again and again. Muscles burned, skin cracked, and sweat never fully dried. Rest was brief and practical, not refreshing. The body was expected to keep going even when it was already exhausted. The heat was constant and unforgiving. Shade was limited and cool spaces were rare. Clothing was simple and light, but it offered little protection from the sun. The skin darkened, blistered, and aged quickly. Dehydration was common, yet water had to be managed carefully. Drinking too much at once could leave none for later. Drinking too little meant dizziness and weakness. The body was always balancing survival against exhaustion, making each hour feel longer than the last. Food offered energy, but not comfort. Meals were simple and repetitive, often eaten quickly before returning to work. There was no long break in the middle of the day. Bread, vegetables, and sometimes fish were eaten not for enjoyment, but to keep the body moving. Hunger was common, especially among the poor. A modern person, used to frequent meals and snacks, would feel weak and irritable very quickly in this environment. Sleep did not repair the body the way it does today. Nights were warm, sometimes filled with insects, noise, and discomfort. Beds were simple mats or hard surfaces. After long days of labor, the body collapsed into rest, but sleep was often light and broken. Muscles ached, joints stiffened. Morning arrived too soon. There was no concept of recovery days or rest weeks. Work continued day after day, season after season. Illness and injury were constant threats. A small cut could become infected. A pulled muscle could last for months. Medical knowledge was limited, and treatment was often based on ritual or basic remedies. Missing work was dangerous, because survival depended on contribution. Pain was ignored. Weakness was hidden. The body learned to function while hurting, but this came at a cost. Life expectancy was short, and aging came early. As you imagine yourself standing in this heat, muscles sore, mouth dry, and body already tired before the day is half over, it becomes clear how quickly modern comfort would fade. Even a single day of this physical demand would feel endless. This is another reason why you would not last long in ancient Egypt. Life here required endurance, resilience, and acceptance of constant discomfort. As the sun begins to lower and the air cools slightly, allow this image to soften. Let the heat fade from your thoughts. Let your body remain still where you are now. In the next part, we will gently explore homes, sleep, and nighttime discomfort, always slowly, always calmly. For now, remain still. Let the quiet deepen. Let rest continue in its own time. In ancient Egypt, work was not something that fit neatly into a few hours of the day. It was woven into life itself, beginning early and ending only when the body could no longer continue. As the sun rose over the Nile, people were already awake, preparing themselves for another long day under the heat. The warmth arrived quickly and stayed without mercy. There were no shaded offices, no cooled rooms, and no easy escape from the sun. The body learned to endure rather than relax, moving slowly but constantly, conserving energy wherever possible. Most people worked with their hands and their bodies. Farmers bent over fields for hours, tending crops that depended entirely on the river's cycles. Builders hauled stone, mixed mud, and shaped bricks beneath a sky that offered little relief. Craftsmen sat for long periods in uncomfortable positions, carving, weaving, or shaping materials with careful attention. Even those whose work seemed lighter still spent long hours focused and alert, using their eyes and hands until fatigue settled deep into muscles and bones. There was no concept of easing the body through ergonomic comfort. Pain was common and accepted, something carried quietly from day to day. Rest, when it came, was brief and practical. Sitting in the shade, drinking water, or eating a simple meal was not meant to refresh the body fully, only to keep it moving. Sleep at night was often shallow, interrupted by heat, insects, and the simple discomfort of hard sleeping surfaces. The body rarely felt fully recovered. Instead, it adapted to a constant state of tiredness, learning to function while exhausted. Over time, this wore people down quietly, making even small tasks feel heavy. The heat itself shaped every movement. People learned to work slowly, conserving strength, but even this could not fully protect them. Sweat was constant. Dehydration was a real danger. The sun pressed down without pause, and the body struggled to cool itself. For someone used to modern comfort, this alone would be overwhelming. In ancient Egypt, there was no expectation that the day would be easy or pleasant. Endurance was simply part of life. As you imagine standing in that heat, feel how heavy the air seems, how slowly the body wants to move. Notice how rest never quite feels enough. This is another reason why you would not last a day in ancient Egypt. The physical demands were relentless, and the body was never truly allowed to recover. As the night grows quieter now, let this image soften and fade. You do not need to carry the heat or the tiredness with you. Let your body remain still. Let your breathing slow naturally. Allow rest to continue gently, in its own time. Imagine waking up in ancient Egypt before the sun has fully risen. Not because you feel rested, but because the day demands it. The air is already warm, heavy, and dry, and you know that once the sun climbs higher, the heat will become unbearable. There is no choice to stay in bed longer. Work begins early because midday heat can drain the body completely. From the very start of the day, your body feels exposed to the environment, with little protection from the sun, the dust, and the endless physical effort required just to survive. Most people in ancient Egypt lived lives filled with physical labor. Farmers worked long hours along the Nile, bending, lifting, digging, and carrying under the open sky. Builders hauled stone, mud bricks, and heavy tools, often barefoot or with minimal footwear. Servants walked long distances carrying water, food, and supplies. Even children were expected to help early, learning work before rest. The body was always in use, and there was little understanding of pacing or recovery. Fatigue was accepted as normal. Pain was something you worked through, not something you avoided. The heat made everything harder. The sun pressed down constantly, draining energy and moisture from the body. Sweat dried quickly, leaving salt on the skin, and thirst became a constant companion. Clean water was precious and not always easily available. Dehydration was common, and weakness followed quickly when the body could not keep up. Shade was limited, and rest during the hottest part of the day was brief, not enough to truly recover. Even when work paused, the body stayed tense, struggling to cool itself in the heavy air. Food offered only limited relief. Meals were simple and repetitive, often bread, beer, onions, or dates. These foods provided energy but not comfort. Hunger returned quickly after long hours of labor. There was little variety, and meals were eaten quickly, often on the ground or while standing. Eating was not a relaxing break. It was a short pause before returning to work. The body burned more energy than it could easily replace, leading to constant exhaustion. By the time evening arrived, the body felt heavy and worn down. Muscles ached. Joints felt stiff. The skin felt dry and irritated from sun and dust. Sleep did not come easily, even though the body was tired. Homes were hot, poorly ventilated, and often crowded. There were insects, noise, and lingering heat trapped in mud walls. Beds were simple mats or piles of cloth, offering little comfort. The body lay down not because it felt ready to rest, but because there was no strength left to stay awake. Sleep itself was shallow and broken. The heat made it difficult to relax fully. The body woke often, sticky with sweat, adjusting position again and again in search of a cooler spot that rarely existed. Dreams were short and restless. Morning arrived quickly, and with it, the expectation to work again. There was no recovery period, no concept of rest days for most people. The body carried yesterday's exhaustion into today, and tomorrow promised more of the same. As you imagine living this way, notice how quickly energy would fade. This is why you wouldn't last a day in ancient Egypt. Not because of one dramatic hardship, but because of the endless combination of heat, labor, hunger, and poor rest. The body was pushed constantly with little care for comfort or recovery. Life demanded strength every hour, and weakness was not tolerated. As the night grows quiet now, allow this image to soften and drift away. You do not need to stay in that heat. Let your body remain still and supported. Let your breathing slow gently. Allow rest to continue in its own calm way. Imagine waking up in ancient Egypt not because you feel refreshed, but because the sun has already begun to rise and work cannot wait. There are no quiet mornings, no slow starts, and no choice to stay resting. Life is ruled by daylight and duty. As soon as the light appears, bodies begin to move whether they are ready or not. Most people wake already tired, because the night before offered little true comfort. Sleeping spaces are simple, often crowded, and never fully quiet. Heat lingers even after sunset, and insects move freely through the dark. Rest exists, but it is shallow and easily broken. Work in ancient Egypt is relentless and physical. For farmers, labor begins early and continues until the heat becomes unbearable, then resumes again when the sun lowers slightly. Fields must be tended, canals cleared, and crops carried by hand. There are no machines to ease the strain. Every task relies on human muscle. The body bends, lifts, pulls, and carries again and again. Over time, muscles ache constantly, joints stiffen, and small injuries become normal parts of daily life. Pain is expected, not treated. Rest days are rare and unpredictable, tied to religious festivals rather than physical need. For builders, labor is even harsher. Stone is cut, dragged, and shaped under the open sky. Dust fills the air. The sun presses down without mercy. Skin burns and cracks. Hands harden and bleed. The body is pushed past comfort every single day. There is no concept of workplace safety as we understand it. Injuries happen often and recovery is slow. If someone cannot work, they simply fall behind, risking hunger or punishment. The body is valued only for what it can produce. Even those with less physically demanding roles, such as scribes or household servants, live under constant pressure. Scribes sit for long hours in uncomfortable positions, straining eyes and hands. Servants move endlessly through homes, cleaning, carrying, and obeying without pause. Everyone answers to someone above them. Authority is strict, and disobedience brings consequences. Stress is a daily companion, not something that appears occasionally. Food, which might seem like relief after work, rarely restores full energy. Meals are simple and repetitive. Bread, beer, vegetables, and occasional fish form the core of the diet. Meat is rare for ordinary people. Portions are modest, and hunger often lingers even after eating. Nutrition is enough to survive, but not enough to heal the body fully. The energy taken by labor is rarely replaced completely, creating a slow drain that wears people down year after year. Sleep, which should repair the body, does not do enough. Nights are warm and uncomfortable. Many sleep on mats or the ground, sharing space with family members. Privacy does not exist. Noise from animals, neighbors, and insects interrupts rest. The mind remains alert even at night, listening for danger or disturbance. Dreams come easily, but deep rest does not. People wake often and rise again before the body feels ready. This cycle repeats endlessly. As days turn into years, exhaustion becomes a permanent state. People learn to live with tiredness the way they live with heat or dust. It is always there, shaping posture, movement, and mood. Life feels heavy, not dramatic, but draining. The body never fully recovers, and the mind grows accustomed to fatigue as a normal condition. As you imagine this rhythm of work and exhaustion, notice how little space there is for comfort or ease. This is another reason why you would not last a day in ancient Egypt. Life demands constant effort, and the body is never truly allowed to rest or reset. As the night grows quiet now, let this image soften and fade. You do not need to carry this tiredness with you. Let your body remain still. Let your breathing slow gently. Allow rest to continue calmly in its own time. Imagine waking up hungry in ancient Egypt, not with many choices, but with very few simple foods that rarely changed. Daily meals were not about enjoyment or variety. They were about survival and energy for hard work. Bread and beer formed the base of almost every meal, and even these were not always easy to get. Bread was coarse, heavy, and often full of grit from stone grinding. It filled the stomach, but it slowly damaged teeth and gums. Over time, many people suffered from pain while eating, yet there were no real treatments to help. Food preparation itself was tiring and time-consuming. Grain had to be grown, harvested, dried, ground by hand, and baked, all under the hot sun. This work often fell to women and children, repeating every single day without rest. Missing one step meant no food. There were no stored snacks, no easy meals, and no quick fixes. Hunger was a familiar feeling, especially for poorer families, and meals were small, predictable, and rarely satisfying. Meat was a luxury most people experienced only on special occasions or religious festivals. Fish was more common near the Nile, but it had to be caught, cleaned, and cooked quickly before it spoiled in the heat. Fruits and vegetables existed, but they depended on seasons and successful harvests. When floods failed or crops were poor, food shortages followed, and hunger became a daily companion. Eating was also closely tied to social status. Officials and nobles ate better with more variety and comfort, while laborers survived on the basics. This imbalance was visible every day, reminding people of their place in society. There was no expectation of improvement. Most accepted that this was life and life would not change. As you imagine yourself trying to survive on the same rough bread and thin beer day after day, feel how tiring it becomes. Not dramatic hunger, but constant, dull hunger that never fully leaves. This is another reason why you would not last a day in ancient Egypt. Life demanded endurance at every meal. That, as the night grows quiet now, let this image soften and fade. You do not need to hold it. Let your body remain still. Let your breathing slow naturally. Allow rest to continue gently, in its own time. Imagine you wake up in ancient Egypt as the sun rises, not gently but quickly and forcefully, filling the land with heat before the day has even begun. This heat is not something you escape from or complain about. It is simply part of life, always present, always shaping how the body feels and moves. From the earliest hours of the morning, sweat forms on the skin. Clothing sticks to the body. Breathing feels heavier as the air warms. There is no shade waiting for you indoors, no cool rooms sealed from the outside. Homes are built to survive, not to comfort. The heat follows you everywhere, and your body must learn to live inside it. Time in ancient Egypt moves differently than modern life. There are no clocks controlling the day. Instead, time is ruled by the sun. When the sun rises, work begins. When it climbs higher, the body slows, not because work stops, but because the heat demands it. Tasks take longer. Movements become careful and economical. Energy is precious because once it is gone, there is no easy way to restore it. Food is simple. Water is limited and warm. Rest is short and often taken sitting or standing, because lying down in the heat can feel uncomfortable and heavy. Your body never fully recovers. Sleep at night is lighter than you might expect. The air stays warm even after sunset. Insects remain active. Sounds of animals, water, and people continue through the darkness. Beds, as you know them, do not exist. You rest on mats, stone, or packed earth. Sleep comes in pieces rather than long stretches. You wake often, adjust your position, and return to rest slowly. This broken sleep becomes normal, but it leaves the body tired in a quiet, constant way. The heat also shapes emotions. Irritation comes easily. Patience wears thin faster than it would in a cooler place. Small problems feel heavier when the body is already strained. There is no escape, no cool room to calm down in. The only option is endurance. People learn to speak less, move less, and conserve energy wherever possible. Life becomes slower, not by choice, but by necessity. As days repeat like this, the body adapts, but it also pays a price. Muscles ache, skin hardens, fatigue becomes familiar. You are never fully refreshed, only rested enough to continue. This constant physical strain is one of the main reasons you would struggle to last even a single day in ancient Egypt. It is not the drama of the past that breaks you, but the quiet, relentless pressure of environment and routine. As the night grows quieter now, imagine yourself finally sitting still as the heat slowly fades just a little. The body remains tired. The mind slows. There is no excitement in this moment, only relief that the day has ended. Let this image soften and drift away as you rest. For now, remain still. Let the quiet deepen. Let rest continue in its own time. Imagine waking up in ancient Egypt with a small pain in your body. It could be a toothache, a cut on your foot, or a fever that arrived quietly during the night. In the modern world, this would be uncomfortable but manageable. In ancient Egypt, this small problem could slowly become life-changing. Medical knowledge existed, but it was limited, mixed deeply with religion and belief. Doctors tried their best, but many illnesses were misunderstood, and treatments were often ineffective or even harmful. Pain was not something that passed quickly. It stayed, grew, and became part of daily life. Infections were common and dangerous. A small wound from farming, carrying stones, or walking barefoot could become infected easily in the hot climate. Without proper cleaning or antibiotics, the body struggled to fight back. Swelling, fever, and weakness followed slowly. People continued working through pain because survival demanded it. Rest was rare. Over time, the body weakened instead of healing. Many lived with constant discomfort, accepting it as normal because there was no alternative. Dental pain was especially common. Bread was coarse and filled with sand from grinding stones. Teeth wore down quickly, cracking and exposing nerves. Tooth infections caused constant pain and sometimes spread to the jaw or bloodstream. There were no effective painkillers. Relief was limited and temporary. Imagine trying to work, sleep, or focus while carrying this pain every single day. The body never fully relaxed. Sleep was light and broken, shaped by discomfort rather than rest. Diseases spread easily along the Nile. Stagnant water carried parasites. Mosquitoes brought illness. Digestive problems were common due to water quality. Weakness and fatigue were accepted parts of life. Many children did not survive. Many adults lived shorter lives, not because of one dramatic illness, but because the body slowly wore down under constant strain. Religion shaped how illness was understood. Sickness was often seen as a spiritual issue rather than a physical one. People prayed, used charms, and trusted rituals alongside medicine. This brought comfort, but it did not always bring healing. When the body failed to recover, people accepted it quietly, believing it was part of a larger order they could not change. Imagine living in a body that rarely fully heals. Pain becomes familiar. Weakness becomes expected. You wake up tired, work tired, and sleep tired. There is no concept of feeling well the way we understand it today. This constant physical strain made everyday life heavier than we can easily imagine. This is another reason you wouldn't last a day in ancient Egypt. Not because of one sudden disaster, but because the body was constantly tested, rarely repaired, and never truly comfortable. As the night grows quiet now, allow this image to soften and fade. You do not need to carry this discomfort with you. Let your body remain still. Let your breathing slow naturally. Allow rest to return gently, in its own calm time. In ancient Egypt, the sun ruled everything. not gently but constantly, and its presence alone would have made surviving even a single day feel overwhelming to a modern body. From the moment light touched the horizon, life began moving, not by choice, but by necessity. The heat arrived early and stayed without mercy, spreading across sand, stone, and skin, until even standing still felt like effort. There was no escaping it indoors because homes were simple, built to survive rather than comfort, and air moved slowly through thick walls. Sweat became constant, thirst followed closely behind, and the body lost strength faster than it could recover. Water was precious and limited, never cold, never abundant, and always carefully measured. Drinking was not refreshing. It was functional, just enough to continue moving. Rest did not come easily under such conditions. Even when work paused, the heat remained, pressing down on the body, making muscles feel heavy and the mind dull. Daily life continued regardless of exhaustion. Farmers, builders, servants, and laborers all moved under the same sun, repeating tasks hour after hour, not because they wanted to, but because survival depended on it. There were no modern breaks, no shade on demand, no relief waiting at the end of the day. Food was simple and repetitive, providing energy but little comfort, and eating often happened quickly, without rest. The body was always in a state of recovery while still being used. By midday, fatigue settled deep into bones and joints, yet the day was far from over. Even those not working in fields felt the weight of heat and dryness everywhere they went. Sand reflected light, stone held heat, and the air itself felt thick and unmoving. As evening approached, relief did not arrive the way it does today. The sun lowered, but the warmth stayed trapped in the ground and walls, slowly releasing itself through the night. Sleep was not cool or quiet. Bodies rested on hard surfaces, often close together, sharing warmth whether they wanted to or not. Insects moved freely. Sounds of animals and distant activity filled the air, and the mind remained lightly alert. Sleep came in pieces, not deeply, not fully, because the body was still adjusting to heat, thirst, and fatigue. Dreams mixed with waking moments, and rest never felt complete. Morning returned quickly, bringing the sun back again, restarting the cycle without pause. Living like this required a body trained from birth, slowly adapted over years to heat, scarcity, and repetition. A modern person dropped suddenly into this world would feel drained within hours. Muscles would weaken, focus would fade, and frustration would rise quietly as the body realized there was no escape, no comfort waiting, no moment when everything stopped. This constant exposure to heat and effort is one of the simplest reasons you would not last even a single day in ancient Egypt. Not because of danger or drama, but because the environment itself demanded endurance that modern life no longer prepares us for. As the night grows quiet now, let this image soften and fade. You do not need to stay in that heat. Your body can rest. Let your breathing slow. Let the story drift into the background. Allow calm to return, gently and naturally. In ancient Egypt, the human body was rarely given the chance to fully rest, even when night arrived and the air cooled along the Nile. Life demanded constant physical effort, not in dramatic bursts, but in endless repetition. Farmers rose before sunrise and worked until the light faded, bending, lifting, walking and standing for hours under the open sky. Craftsmen sat for long stretches in uncomfortable positions, carving stone, shaping wood, or weaving cloth, their hands and backs slowly wearing down over time. There were no chairs designed for comfort, no soft bedding waiting at the end of the day, and no understanding of recovery as something important. The body was expected to endure, and endurance was valued more than ease. Sleep itself did not repair the body in the way we might expect. Nights were short, broken, and often uncomfortable. Many people slept on simple mats, thin cloth, or directly on the ground. The heat of the day lingered well into the night, making rest restless and light. Insects moved freely. Sounds from animals and nearby households filled the darkness, and the mind never fully switched off. Waking during the night was normal, not because of fear, but because the body remained alert to its surroundings. Even during sleep, there was an awareness of the environment, a quiet readiness that prevented deep rest. Pain was common and accepted as part of life. Aching joints, sore muscles, and lingering injuries were not treated as problems to be solved, but as conditions to live with. Medical knowledge existed, but it was limited and often focused on ritual rather than relief. Most people continued working through discomfort because stopping meant falling behind. Over time, this constant strain shaped bodies that aged quickly. Strength faded early. Flexibility disappeared. By middle age, many carried the wear of decades of labor in their posture and movement. There was little separation between work and rest day and night. Responsibilities followed people home. Tools needed cleaning. Animals needed tending. Food needed preparing. Even after darkness settled, the body rarely experienced complete stillness. This constant low-level activity kept the nervous system engaged, making true relaxation rare. The body existed in a steady state of effort, never fully collapsing into rest, never fully recovering. As you imagine living in this way, notice how exhausting it feels without being dramatic. There is no single moment of collapse, only a slow wearing down. This is another reason why you would not last a day in ancient Egypt, not because of one great hardship, but because the body was never allowed to fully stop, fully rest, or fully recover. As the night grows quiet now, allow this image to fade gently. Let your body remain still. Let your breathing slow naturally. Allow rest to continue softly, without effort or expectation. Living in ancient Egypt placed a constant, heavy demand on the human body, one that never truly eased, not even at night. The climate alone shaped every moment of life. The heat did not simply feel warm. It pressed down slowly and steadily, draining strength hour by hour. From sunrise to sunset, the sun ruled everything. Work began early, not by choice, but by necessity. Once the light appeared, movement followed. Fields needed tending, water needed carrying, stone needed lifting, and homes needed maintaining. Rest was not something planned carefully. It happened only when the body could no longer continue. The physical strain of daily life never truly left the muscles. Even during moments of sitting or lying down, the body remained tense, shaped by habit and exhaustion. Feet were often bare or poorly protected, walking on hard ground, sand, and stone. Joints carried years of pressure. Backs bent early, shoulders hardened. Pain became so familiar that it stopped being noticed as something unusual. It was simply part of being alive. There was no expectation that the body should feel comfortable. Survival mattered more than comfort. Sleep, when it came, did not arrive gently. Nights were short and often interrupted. Homes were simple, built for shade rather than comfort. Floors were hard. Bedding was thin or non-existent. Insects moved freely. Sounds from animals, wind, and nearby people filled the darkness. The body lay down not to recover fully, but to pause briefly before the next day arrived. Even during sleep, the heat often lingered, making deep rest difficult. Sweat cooled slowly. Breath stayed shallow. The body never fully reset. The mind carried its own weight alongside this physical exhaustion. Ancient Egyptian life was deeply structured by belief, duty, and social order. Every action felt observed, not just by other people, but by unseen forces. Gods were everywhere. Balance mattered. Order mattered. Mistakes were not only practical failures, they were moral ones. This created a quiet pressure that followed people into their thoughts. Even in moments of rest, the mind replayed actions, worries, and responsibilities. There was little space for personal freedom in thought or feeling. Life was shaped by role. Farmer, laborer, servant, or artisan. Each position came with expectations that were rarely questioned. Dreams of a different life were dangerous to hold on to, because there was no clear path toward change. This made the mind narrow its focus, staying close to daily survival. Long-term hope was replaced by routine endurance. As days passed into years, this constant combination of physical strain and mental pressure slowly wore people down. Aging came early. Energy faded quickly. By modern standards, life felt short and heavy. Even those who lived many years did so with bodies shaped by labor and minds shaped by caution. As you imagine yourself trying to live even a single day like this, notice how overwhelming it feels without any drama. There is no single moment of collapse, just steady effort from morning until night, repeated again and again. This is why you would not last a day in ancient Egypt, not because of one danger or one hardship, but because life itself demanded everything, all the time. As the night grows quiet now, allow this image to fade gently. You do not need to carry it forward. Let your body remain still. Let your breathing slow naturally. Allow rest to continue calmly, without effort. By this point in ancient Egypt, the body would already be reaching its limits. Even surviving the early hours of the day would have taken more energy than most modern bodies are prepared for. The constant heat, the rough ground under bare feet, the thick air filled with dust, smoke, and insects, and the lack of clean water would slowly drain strength without asking permission. There were no breaks designed for comfort. Rest was brief and practical, taken only when work allowed it. Muscles stayed tense. Skin burned under the sun. Breathing felt heavier as the day stretched on, and fatigue settled deep into the bones rather than passing through. Food, even when available, offered little relief. Meals were simple and repetitive, focused on survival rather than balance or taste. Bread was coarse and hard, often mixed with grit from stone tools, slowly wearing down teeth and jaws. Vegetables were limited by season. Meat was rare for most people. Hunger did not disappear after eating. It stayed quietly present, making the body feel weak and unfocused. Energy came in short bursts and faded quickly, leaving behind heaviness and slow movement. Illness was another constant threat. Small cuts could become serious. Infections spread easily in the heat. There was no clear understanding of germs or hygiene. Medical care existed, but it was limited and uncertain. Pain was endured rather than treated. Fevers were waited out rather than cured. The body was expected to carry on, even when it clearly needed rest. For someone not raised in these conditions, the shock alone would be overwhelming. Weakness would appear quickly, and recovery would be slow or impossible. Sleep, which might seem like a chance to recover, offered little comfort. Nights were not quiet or cool in the way one might hope. Insects filled the air. Animals moved nearby. The ground remained hard and warm. Sleep came in fragments, interrupted by noise, discomfort, and the body's own stress. Deep rest was rare. Waking did not bring renewal, only the knowledge that another demanding day had begun. Emotionally, this constant strain would wear a person down just as much as the physical effort. There was little privacy, little personal choice, and little control over one's own time. Life was shaped by duty, survival, and social order. Personal comfort came last. For someone used to choice silence and personal space, this lack of control would feel suffocating. Stress would rise quietly without release, making each hour feel heavier than the last. As the day moved toward its end, exhaustion would no longer feel temporary. It would feel complete. The body would slow, the mind would dull. Simple tasks would require effort. This is where most modern people would realize the truth. Not through danger or drama, but through quiet depletion. Ancient Egypt demanded constant endurance, not just strength. Surviving a single day required a body and mind shaped by years of adaptation. As you imagine reaching this point, notice how heavy everything feels. Not frightening, just overwhelming in its simplicity. This is why you would not last a day in ancient Egypt. Not because people were cruel, but because life itself was hard, unyielding, and deeply physical. As the night grows quiet now, allow this image to soften and fade. You do not need to carry it further. Let your body remain still. Let your breathing slow naturally. Allow rest to continue gently in its own time. In ancient Egypt, the sun was not just part of the sky. It ruled daily life completely. From the moment the light appeared in the morning until it finally softened at dusk, the body lived under heat that never truly rested. There was little shade, and most work happened outdoors or in open spaces where the sun could reach easily. The air was dry, the ground warm, and the light strong enough to tire the eyes and skin quickly. Without modern protection, the body absorbed this heat slowly and constantly, draining energy hour by hour. Even standing still became exhausting. Sweat dried quickly, leaving the body thirsty again and again. Rest under the sun never felt complete, because the heat followed everywhere. Daily movement in this environment demanded more from the body than it could comfortably give. Walking on hot ground, carrying simple tools, lifting water, or standing for long periods placed quiet strain on muscles and joints. There was no escape from the climate. Clothing was light, but it could not block the sun entirely. Skin darkened, cracked, and burned. Fatigue was not dramatic but steady and deep, settling into the bones. The body learned to move slowly, not from calm, but from necessity. Moving too fast meant burning energy too quickly, and energy was precious. Water, though valued, was not always clean or plentiful. The Nile provided life, but it also carried illness. Drinking water often meant swallowing unseen dangers. Dehydration and sickness were common companions, weakening the body further. Recovery was slow. There were no easy ways to cool down, no guaranteed rest indoors, and no quick relief. Sleep at night did not fully restore strength lost during the day, because the body remained warm long after the sun disappeared. Over time, this constant exposure shaped how people lived and how long they could endure. The body adapted as best it could, but adaptation did not mean comfort. It meant survival at a steady cost. Muscles remained tired. Skin remained sensitive. The mind learned to accept discomfort as normal. This was not a harsh punishment. It was simply daily life under an ancient sun that never showed mercy. As the night grows quiet now, allow this image to soften and fade. Let the heat of that ancient day drift away. Stay still. Let your breathing slow. Let rest return gently, without effort. By the time a day in ancient Egypt moved toward its quiet ending, the human body was already carrying a weight it was never designed to handle easily. Heat had soaked into the skin from sunrise, drying the mouth and slowing every movement. Muscles felt heavy, not from exercise alone, but from standing, walking, lifting, and working without relief. There were no soft breaks built into the day, no chairs placed conveniently, no shade guaranteed. Even rest happened on hard ground or rough surfaces, where the body never fully relaxed. This constant physical strain meant that exhaustion arrived early and stayed late, lingering long after the sun dipped lower in the sky. The air itself made breathing feel heavier. Dust clung to skin and entered the lungs with every breath. Sand stuck to sweat, forming a rough layer that irritated the body and made even simple movement uncomfortable. Clothing offered little protection, often thin and practical rather than comfortable. Feet ached from walking barefoot or in basic sandals over hot ground and stone paths. Blisters, cuts, and small injuries were common, and they were rarely treated properly. The body learned to function while hurting, carrying pain quietly without complaint. Hunger added another layer of difficulty. Meals were simple and repetitive, designed for survival rather than comfort. Bread was coarse. Vegetables were limited. Meat was rare for most people. The body burned energy faster than it could replace it, leaving a constant low weakness beneath every action. Even when food was available, it did not fully restore strength. Digestion itself required effort in the heat, making the body feel sluggish rather than refreshed. As night approached, relief did not arrive the way it does today. Darkness brought cooler air, but it also brought insects, discomfort, and the same hard sleeping surfaces. There were no beds shaped for rest, no quiet rooms sealed from sound and movement. Sleep happened where it could, often light and interrupted. The body tried to recover, but recovery was incomplete. Muscles remained tight. Thirst returned quickly. Dreams blended with discomfort, and waking came too soon. This cycle repeated every day. There was no reset, no full recovery. The body aged faster under these conditions. Strength faded earlier. Illness appeared quietly and stayed longer. Without modern medicine, even small health problems could slowly grow serious. Survival depended on endurance rather than comfort, and endurance always came at a cost. As you imagine yourself placed into this world, feel how quickly your modern body would struggle, not because of one dramatic danger, but because of everything happening at once. Heat, hunger, labor, discomfort, and incomplete rest would stack quietly on top of each other. This is why you would not last a day in ancient Egypt, not because you are weak, but because life itself demanded more than the body was meant to give. As the night grows quiet now, let this image slowly fade. You do not need to hold on to it. Let your body rest where it is. Let your breathing slow naturally. Allow the ancient world to drift away, and allow sleep to take its place. Imagine waking up in ancient Egypt before the sun is fully risen, yet the air already feels warm and heavy against your skin. The heat is not something that comes later in the day. It is already there, waiting, pressing gently, but constantly. The body never truly cools. Even at night, warmth lingers, settling into muscles and bones. Sweat becomes a normal part of existence, not a sign of effort, but a constant response to the environment. Clothing is light, but it still sticks to the skin. The sun does not feel like something you step into. It feels like something you live inside. Daily life demands movement under this heat. Walking, carrying, lifting, bending, all happen beneath a sky that offers little shade. The ground reflects warmth upward, making the air feel thick and slow. Breathing feels heavier than expected, not difficult, but tiring. The body loses water quickly, and thirst is always nearby. There is no easy way to escape the sun. Shade is limited, and rest is brief. The body learns to keep going, even when it feels drained. Work in ancient Egypt is repetitive and physical. Whether tending fields, shaping stone, carrying goods, or building structures, the body is used constantly. Movements repeat hour after hour, day after day. There are no modern tools to reduce strain. Hands become rough. Shoulders ache. Backs stiffen. Muscles remain tight even during rest. Pain becomes familiar, not sharp, but dull and constant. The body adapts, but adaptation comes with exhaustion. Food gives energy, but not comfort. Meals are simple and functional. Bread, grains, vegetables, and occasional fish fill the stomach, but they do not restore the body fully. Nutrition keeps people moving, not thriving. Hunger is rarely extreme, but satisfaction is rare too. The body exists in a state of balance that is just enough to continue working. Strength is maintained, but ease is not. Rest offers limited relief. Sleeping spaces are basic, often close to the ground. The warmth remains through the night, making deep sleep difficult. The body never fully relaxes. Dreams come lightly and leave quickly. Morning arrives before the body feels ready and the cycle begins again. Over time, fatigue builds quietly. The body keeps going, but each day takes something with it. Injuries are common and often untreated. Small cuts, strains, and infections happen easily during physical work. Healing is slow under constant strain and heat. There is knowledge of remedies, but access is limited and inconsistent. Pain is endured rather than resolved. The body carries marks of its labor, visible and invisible, shaping how it moves and rests. As you imagine living this way, feel how relentless it is. There is no single moment of collapse, no dramatic breaking point, just a steady wearing down. This is why surviving even one full day in ancient Egypt would feel overwhelming to a modern body. The environment does not adjust. The work does not pause. The heat does not soften. As the night grows quiet now, let this image fade slowly. You do not need to hold on to the heat or the effort. Let your body remain still. Let your breathing slow. Allow rest to come gently without demand. By the time a full day in ancient Egypt began to stretch toward its end, the body would already feel like it had lived much longer than a single day. The heat that never truly faded, the hard ground under bare feet, the constant effort required for even the smallest task would slowly drain every bit of energy. Muscles would ache from movements repeated without rest. Skin would feel tight and dry from sun and dust. The body would not feel injured in a dramatic way, but deeply worn, as if strength had been quietly pulled away piece by piece. In a world without modern relief, there was no pause button. Fatigue was not something that arrived at night. It lived inside the body all day long. Hunger would add to this slow collapse. Food in ancient Egypt was simple and often limited. Meals were based on bread, grain, and small portions, eaten more for survival than pleasure. For someone unfamiliar with this life, the stomach would feel heavy and unsatisfied at the same time. Energy would rise briefly after eating, then fall again just as quickly. There were no snacks, no easy comfort foods, no steady supply. Hunger became a background feeling, never loud enough to scream, but always present enough to weaken the body and mind. As the sun lowered, the exhaustion would deepen instead of lifting. There was no sense of relief at the end of the day. Evening did not mean rest in the way it does now. It simply meant a different kind of work, quieter but still demanding. Fires needed attention. Tools needed to be stored. Animals needed care. The body was expected to keep moving even when it wanted to stop. Sitting still too early felt unsafe, because survival depended on completing every task before darkness fully arrived. The mind, just like the body, would begin to slow in an unfamiliar way. Thoughts would become shorter and simpler, not because of peace, but because of tiredness. There would be no space left for reflection or curiosity. Awareness would narrow to basic needs: stand, sit, drink, breathe. This mental shrinking was not calming. It was limiting. The mind was not relaxing. It was conserving what little energy remained. As night finally settled, sleep would not feel like a reward. It would feel like collapse. The body would lower itself onto hard ground, woven mats, or simple surfaces without softness. There were no pillows shaped for comfort, no blankets designed for warmth and ease. The position chosen was the one that hurt the least, not the one that felt good. Even then, the body would remain tense, responding to sounds, insects, heat, and discomfort. Sleep would come in pieces, shallow and broken, offering just enough rest to survive the next day. This is the moment where it becomes clear why you would not last a day in ancient Egypt. Not because of one dramatic hardship, but because of the endless layering of small struggles. Heat, hunger, labor, discomfort, and exhaustion, all pressed together without relief. The body was expected to endure constantly, without complaint, without pause, without recovery. Modern strength is built on rest and comfort. Ancient survival was built on endurance alone. As this long day finally fades into night, allow the image to soften and drift away. You do not need to stay there. Let your own body rest where it is now, supported and safe. Let your breathing slow. Let the quiet take over gently. As the long days of ancient Egypt continued without pause, the human body slowly began to understand something the mind often tried to ignore. This land was not built for comfort, and it did not adjust itself to visitors or outsiders. The heat returned every morning without mercy. The air stayed dry and heavy, and the ground offered no softness or relief. Muscles that had already been strained by labor, walking, and constant standing did not have time to recover. Sleep came lightly and ended early, and when the sun rose again, exhaustion simply carried over into the next day. There was no reset, no fresh start, only continuation. In this world, weakness showed quickly. A small injury that might seem harmless elsewhere could become a serious problem here. Cuts became infected. Blisters turned into open wounds. Dehydration arrived quietly, drying the mouth, slowing the body, and clouding the mind. There were no quick remedies, no clean water available at all times, and no rest days planned for recovery. The body was expected to endure, not complain. Pain was not unusual enough to be treated. It was simply part of existing. As exhaustion deepened, the mind began to change. Thoughts slowed, focus weakened, and simple decisions became difficult. The heat pressed down not just on the body, but on awareness itself. Time stretched strangely. Hours felt longer, yet days passed without distinction. Hunger mixed with fatigue, creating a dull emptiness that food did not fully satisfy. Even rest felt incomplete, as the body never cooled fully, and the night never stayed quiet for long. There was also no privacy in this exhaustion. Life in ancient Egypt was communal and public. People worked, slept, and moved together. If you struggled, others saw it. If you slowed down, it was noticed. There was little space to withdraw or recover alone. Expectations did not soften simply because the body was tired. The rhythm of life continued regardless, and anyone who could not keep up quickly felt out of place. Over time, this constant pressure wore away any sense of control. You did not choose when to stop. You stopped only when the body could no longer continue. And when that moment came, there was no guarantee of care or relief. Survival depended on endurance, not comfort. The land demanded strength every single day, and it gave very little back. As you imagine standing there under the endless Egyptian sun, feel how heavy everything becomes. The heat, the tiredness, the slow drain of energy that never fully returns. This is why you would not last a day in ancient Egypt, not because of danger or drama, but because the body itself would quietly reach its limit. As the night grows still now, let this image fade. Let your own body rest without effort. Let the cool quiet around you feel gentle and safe. There is nothing you need to endure here. Imagine waking up in ancient Egypt after a night that never fully refreshed you. Sleep was shallow, often broken by heat, insects, sounds from animals, or movement from others nearby. The body never sank into deep rest the way it does today. Even when eyes were closed, awareness stayed close to the surface. Muscles remained tight from long days of labor, and the air itself felt heavy and warm against the skin. Morning did not arrive with energy. It arrived with acceptance. Another day had begun, and the body had no choice but to rise again. Daily life in ancient Egypt demanded constant physical effort. Whether working in fields, carrying water, shaping stone, or performing repetitive household tasks, the body was always in use. There were no machines to ease the work. Everything depended on human strength and endurance. Arms grew tired early in the day. Backs ached from bending and lifting. Feet hardened from long hours on hot ground. There was little time to recover fully before the next task began. Rest existed, but it was brief and often incomplete. The heat added another layer of exhaustion. The sun rose strong and stayed high for long hours, pressing down on skin and breath. Shade was limited, and water was precious. Thirst became familiar. Sweat dried quickly, leaving salt on the skin. The body worked harder just to stay balanced. Energy faded faster than expected, and weakness was common, especially among children and the elderly. There was no way to escape the climate. It shaped every movement and every breath. Food, while steady, was simple and repetitive. Bread and beer formed the base of most meals, with vegetables when available, and meat only on rare occasions. This diet kept people alive, but it did not always keep them strong. Hunger was not dramatic, but it was constant in the background. The body learned to function on just enough, never feeling fully satisfied. Over time, this affected strength, healing, and resistance to illness. Illness itself was common and often misunderstood. Without modern medicine, many conditions lingered or returned again and again. Small injuries became serious. Infections spread easily. Pain was endured quietly, because there were few alternatives. The body carried sickness alongside daily work, rarely given the chance to stop completely. Survival depended on continuing, even when weak. As you imagine living inside this body, notice how tiring it feels without any dramatic moment. There is no sudden collapse, only steady strain. This is why you would not last a day in ancient Egypt. Not because of one great hardship, but because every part of life asked more from the body than it could easily give. As the night grows quiet now, allow this image to soften and fade. You do not need to stay with it. Let your body remain still. Let your breathing stay slow and gentle. Allow rest to continue calmly, in its own time. As the days passed in ancient Egypt, the greatest challenge was not a single task or moment, but the slow and constant wearing down of the body. The sun rose early and strong, spreading heat across the land before the day had truly begun. By mid-morning, the air felt heavy and unmoving, pressing down on skin and breath alike. There was no escape from this heat. Shade was limited, and rest was rare. The body sweated constantly, losing strength little by little, while water remained precious and carefully rationed. Dehydration was common, and weakness was something people learned to live with rather than cure. Work did not pause for discomfort. Farmers continued in the fields, builders lifted stone, servants moved back and forth carrying loads, and craftsmen worked in small workshops filled with warm air and dust. The body adjusted as best it could, but fatigue settled deep into muscles and bones. Feet cracked from dry ground. Hands hardened and split. The back ached from long hours of bending and lifting. There was no concept of taking a day off to recover. Rest came only when darkness arrived, and even then, Sleep was light and interrupted by heat, insects, and noise. Food provided energy, but not always balance. Meals were simple and repetitive, often lacking variety. Bread was coarse, sometimes filled with grit that wore down teeth over time. Protein was limited for most people, and hunger was a familiar feeling, not sharp or dramatic, but constant and dull. This slow lack of nourishment weakened the body further, making illness harder to resist and recovery slower. Minor sickness could linger for weeks. Infections were common and dangerous, especially in a climate that encouraged wounds to fester. Medical knowledge existed, but it was limited and deeply tied to belief. Remedies mixed herbs, rituals, and prayers. Some treatments helped, others did nothing. Pain was accepted as part of life. There were no reliable ways to ease chronic discomfort. Aging came early, marked by stiffness, worn joints, and failing eyesight. People often looked far older than their actual years, shaped by sun, labor, and survival. Sleep, which should have restored the body, rarely did so fully. Nights were cooler but not always comfortable. People slept on mats or simple surfaces, often crowded together. Insects crawled freely. Sounds from animals, neighbors, and the natural world interrupted rest. The mind never fully shut down, staying alert to movement and noise. Morning came quickly, bringing another long day before the body had truly recovered from the last. As you imagine living this way day after day, notice how quietly exhausting it feels. There is no single dramatic hardship, only constant strain. This is why you would not last a day in ancient Egypt. Not because of one extreme moment, but because every hour slowly took something from the body, leaving little behind. As the night grows quiet now, allow this image to fade. Let your body remain still. Let your breathing stay slow and gentle. Allow rest to continue softly, without effort. By the time a person had lived long enough in ancient Egypt, the body was no longer something that felt reliable or strong. It became something that needed constant care, attention, and patience, yet rarely received it. Life along the Nile demanded daily labor. Whether someone worked in the fields, carried stone, built walls, cooked, cleaned, or served others. Rest was limited, and recovery was slow. The heat pressed down every day, pulling energy out of the body little by little. Muscles ached constantly, joints stiffened early, and small injuries never fully healed. The body learned to work through pain because there was no choice, but this endurance slowly wore it down. Illness was common and often untreated. Clean water was not always available, and infections spread easily. A small cut could become serious. A fever could last for weeks. The body fought quietly, without medicine or understanding of what was happening inside. People relied on herbs, prayers, and tradition, but many illnesses simply had to run their course. Weakness became part of daily life. Even young people often felt tired in a way that modern bodies rarely experience. Strength faded early, not because of age alone, but because the body was never truly allowed to rest. Food helped keep people alive, but it rarely restored them fully. Diets were simple and repetitive, based on bread, grains, and occasional vegetables. Protein was limited for most people, and hunger was familiar. Eating filled the stomach, but it did not always bring strength. Over time, this lack of nourishment showed in thin bodies, fragile teeth, and constant fatigue. Children grew up quickly and aged early. Adults carried exhaustion like a shadow that never left. Sleep, which should have been a time of healing, often failed to restore the body. Nights were short, uncomfortable, and filled with insects, noise, and heat. Sleeping spaces were basic, sometimes on the floor, sometimes on mats, rarely quiet. The body never fully relaxed. Muscles stayed tense, senses stayed alert. Even when sleep came, it was light and broken. Morning arrived too quickly, and the body rose already tired, carrying yesterday's exhaustion into a new day. As years passed, the body slowly accepted its limits. Movements became slower, work took longer, breathing felt heavier. Yet life did not slow down in response. Expectations remained the same. Fields still needed tending. Stones still needed moving. Households still needed labor. The body gave what it could even when it had little left. This constant giving without recovery shortened lives quietly, without drama. As you imagine living in this body day after day, feel how heavy it becomes. Not suddenly, not violently, but slowly and steadily. This is why most modern people would not last long in ancient Egypt. Not because of one great hardship, but because of thousands of small ones that never stopped. The body would eventually give in, not in a single moment, but over time. As the night grows quiet now, let this image soften and fade. Let your own body rest where it is. Let your breathing slow. Let the weight of this ancient life drift away, leaving you in calm stillness. By the time a normal day in ancient Egypt reached its later hours, the human body had already been pushed far beyond what most modern people would recognize as endurance. The sun had beaten down since early morning, not gently, but with a dry, steady force that drained moisture from skin and breath alike. Sweat did not cool the body for long. It vanished quickly into the air, leaving behind thirst that could not easily be satisfied. Water was precious, often warm, sometimes unsafe, and never freely available in large amounts. The body learned to live on less, but it paid a price for that adaptation every single day. Muscles ached constantly, not from exercise, but from repetitive labor that never changed. Lifting, carrying, grinding grain, shaping mud bricks, walking long distances barefoot on hard ground. These movements filled every hour. There was no concept of rest days as we know them. The body recovered only partially at night, often sleeping on hard surfaces, surrounded by noise, insects, and heat that lingered long after sunset. Even sleep was not truly restorative. It was simply a pause before the next day began. Illness was always close. Small cuts became infections. Dehydration weakened the body quietly. Parasites entered through water and food, draining strength slowly over months or years. Medical knowledge existed, but it was limited and often mixed with ritual rather than effective treatment. Pain was endured rather than relieved. The body learned to function while hurting because stopping was rarely an option. Survival required movement, even when the body was asking. As exhaustion deepened, the mind also began to change. Thought slowed, focus narrowed. There was no space for reflection or planning beyond the next task. Life became immediate and physical. Hunger, thirst, heat, and fatigue shaped every decision. Dreams of a different life had little room to exist, not because people lacked imagination, but because the body simply demanded attention. When survival takes all energy, nothing is left for comfort or curiosity. By the end of the day, when shadows finally stretched longer and the heat softened slightly, the body did not feel relief. It felt emptiness. Energy was gone. Strength was spent. What remained was the simple need to lie down and stop moving. This was not rest earned with satisfaction, but collapse accepted without question. The body did not ask whether tomorrow would be the same. It already knew the answer. As you imagine yourself in this moment, feel how heavy it is. Not dramatic, not loud, just endlessly demanding. This is why you would not last a day in ancient Egypt. Not because of one single hardship, but because every small strain added together until there was nothing left to give. As the night grows quiet now, let this ancient day fade away. You are not there. Your body is safe. Your breathing can slow. The heat is gone. The labor has ended. Remain still. Let the quiet deepen. Let rest continue in its own time. As the long Egyptian day slowly came to an end, the heat did not disappear quickly. It lingered in the air, trapped in the mud brick walls and baked into the ground beneath bare feet. When the sun finally slipped below the horizon, there was no sudden comfort, only a slow change from burning light to heavy darkness. For most people in ancient Egypt, night was not a time of rest the way we imagine it today. It was simply another challenge to endure. Homes offered little protection from insects, heat, or noise. The body, already exhausted from labor, hunger, and sun, tried to rest on hard floors made of packed earth. Sleep came in fragments, not because people chose it that way, but because the body could not fully relax. Imagine lying down after a day spent working under the sun, muscles sore, skin dry, stomach never truly full. There is no soft bed, no quiet room, no sense of privacy. Family members rest nearby, shifting, breathing, whispering. Outside, animals move through the dark. Insects buzz constantly, and the air feels thick and unmoving. The mind does not drift easily. It stays alert, listening for danger, discomfort, or disturbance. Even sleep itself feels shallow, as if the body is afraid to sink too deeply. This was normal, this was expected. Rest was never complete, only temporary. For the poor, night offered little relief. Hunger often returned as the body slowed down. Water was limited. Cleanliness was difficult. Illness, once it arrived, did not wait for daylight. Fevers burned through the night. Pain lingered. There was no medicine to truly ease it. No comfort beyond endurance. People learned to accept discomfort as part of existence. Complaining did not change anything. Survival meant adapting quietly. The darkness also carried fear. Ancient Egypt may seem stable and powerful from a distance, but daily life was fragile. Disease, injury, and accidents were common. A simple wound could become deadly. A bad harvest could mean hunger. The night magnified these fears because help was far away, and authority slept behind walls. For many, darkness was not peaceful. It was uncertain. Sleep happened not because it was safe, but because the body eventually gave in to exhaustion. Even dreams carried weight. Dreams were believed to be messages, warnings, or signs from unseen forces. Waking from a troubling dream could leave a person uneasy, unsure what it meant for the coming day. There was no way to ignore these feelings. The spiritual world was always close, always watching. Rest was never fully free from thought or belief. As hours passed, people woke and slept in cycles. Someone would rise to drink water, tend a small fire, or simply shift position to escape discomfort. There was no schedule, no fixed time for deep sleep. The body rested when it could. By the time dawn arrived, many were already awake, not refreshed but resigned. Another day was beginning, whether the body was ready or not. As you imagine this night settling over ancient Egypt, notice how little comfort exists in it. No softness, no silence, no true recovery. This is why lasting even one full day would have been harder than it sounds. The struggle did not end when the sun went down. It simply changed shape. As the night grows quiet now, allow this ancient darkness to fade away. Let your body rest in a way they never could. Let your breathing slow. Let the story remain in the past. As time passed in ancient Egypt, the human body slowly reached a point where it could no longer keep up with the demands placed upon it. Life beside the Nile looked calm from a distance, but for most people, every single day required physical effort. Work did not stop because of age, pain, or exhaustion. Farmers still went to the fields. Builders still lifted stone. Servants still walked long distances. And laborers still followed commands under the hot sun. The body was expected to obey even when it was already tired. Over years, this constant demand wore people down quietly, without pause or mercy. Heat was always present. The sun rose strong and stayed overhead for hours, pressing down on the land and on the people moving through it. Shade was limited. Water helped, but it could not erase exhaustion. Sweat dried quickly in the heat, leaving the skin tight and irritated. Muscles ached from repeated movement. Feet blistered from walking on hard ground and sand. There was little time to rest properly, and when rest came, it was brief and shallow. The body never fully recovered before being asked to work again. Illness made life even harder. Medical knowledge existed, but it was limited and mixed with belief and ritual. Small infections could become serious. Cuts could swell. Fevers could last for days. When the body weakened, there was no modern care to restore strength quickly. Many continued working while sick because stopping meant hunger or punishment. The body learned to endure pain rather than escape it, and this endurance slowly consumed what little energy remained. Sleep, which should have restored strength, often failed to do so. Nights were warm and uncomfortable. Insects disturbed rest. Noise from animals or nearby people broke silence. Most slept on simple mats or bare floors, turning often to find a cooler spot. Sleep came in pieces rather than deep stretches. The body rested just enough to continue, but never enough to feel renewed. Over time, this lack of deep rest made exhaustion permanent. As years passed, aging arrived early. Backs bent sooner. Joints stiffened faster. Teeth wore down from coarse food. Skin hardened under sun and wind. People did not grow old slowly. They grew tired quickly. Many did not live long lives, not because of sudden events, but because the body simply ran out of strength. There was no retirement, no slowing down. Life continued until it could not. As you imagine this stage of life in ancient Egypt, notice how quiet and heavy it feels. There is no dramatic ending, no sudden collapse. just a slow fading of energy under the weight of daily survival. This is another reason why you would not last a day in ancient Egypt. Not because people were weak, but because life demanded everything the body had, and then asked for more. As the night grows calm again, allow this image to soften and fade. You do not need to hold it. Let your body remain still. Let your breathing slow gently. Allow rest to continue quietly, far away from the heat, the labor, and the long days of the ancient world. Imagine waking up in ancient Egypt as the sun begins to rise, not gently, but with a heat that already presses against the body. Even in the early hours, the air feels heavy and dry, and the day promises exhaustion before it has truly begun. Life here is ruled by the sun, and the sun shows no mercy. Shade is limited, water is precious, and rest is something earned only after long hours of work. For most people, survival depends on rising early and moving constantly, because stopping for too long means falling behind. There is no choice in this rhythm. The land demands effort, and the body must obey. Daily life is shaped by labor that never truly ends. Fields must be worked, canals maintained, stones carried, goods moved, and homes repaired. Even those not directly farming feel the weight of physical effort. Muscles ache not from one hard day, but from years of repetition without relief. There are no days off in the modern sense. Rest comes only when the body can no longer continue, and even then, guilt and fear remain. Hunger waits patiently for anyone who slows down too much. Food is simple, measured, and never guaranteed. Bread, beer, and small portions are shared carefully, and the fear of shortage always lingers in the background. The environment itself adds constant pressure. Sand enters everything. Skin cracks under the sun. Insects bite endlessly. Disease spreads easily in crowded homes near the river. Medical knowledge exists, but it is limited, and healing is slow. A small infection can become life-changing. Pain is endured quietly because there is little alternative. Complaining does not change the reality of the day. The body learns to carry discomfort as part of existence, not as an exception. Above all of this work and hardship hangs the weight of belief. The gods are everywhere in ancient Egypt. Every action, every success, every failure is believed to be watched and judged. A good harvest is divine favor. A bad one is punishment. This belief brings comfort to some, but pressure to many. Fear of angering the gods shapes behavior, thought, and emotion. Rituals must be followed carefully. Order, known as ma'at, must be maintained at all costs. Breaking it is not just a mistake, it is a threat to the balance of the world. Living under this constant spiritual responsibility adds another layer of exhaustion to an already heavy life. Sleep, which should offer escape, is often shallow and broken. Homes are small, crowded, and filled with noise. Mats are hard. Nights are hot. Worries follow people into rest. The body never fully cools, never fully relaxes. Dreams mix with fears of tomorrow's labor, tomorrow's hunger, tomorrow's judgment. Morning arrives too quickly and the cycle begins again. As you imagine yourself living this way, feel how relentless it is. There is beauty in ancient Egypt, yes, but it is beauty built on endurance. Surviving even one day requires strength, obedience, and acceptance of hardship as normal. This is why you would not last a day in ancient Egypt. Not because the people were weak, but because life demanded everything from them, every single day, without pause. As the night grows quiet now, let this heavy world fade away. You are no longer under the sun. You are no longer carrying stone, fear, or expectation. Let your body rest where theirs rarely could. Let your breathing slow. Let sleep come gently, without demands, without judgment. As we slowly come to the end of this long and calm journey into ancient Egypt, it becomes clear that surviving even a single day in that world required more than strength or bravery. It required a kind of endurance that most modern minds and bodies are no longer prepared for. Life along the Nile looked beautiful from a distance, with golden sunlight, flowing water, and grand temples rising from the earth. But beneath that beauty was a daily struggle that never truly paused. Every hour demanded effort. Every task required patience. Comfort, as we understand it today, simply did not exist. Imagine waking up before sunrise, not because you want to, but because the heat will soon make work unbearable. Your body already feels tired, even before the day begins. The air is thick, insects are everywhere, and clean water is never guaranteed. Food is simple and repetitive, meant only to keep you alive, not satisfied. Your clothes offer little protection from the sun, and your skin carries the marks of constant labor. There is no privacy, no quiet space to retreat into, and no real break from the presence of others. Life happens in the open, shared, exposed, and unfiltered. Disease moves quietly through daily life. A small cut can become dangerous. A fever can linger without treatment. Medicine is limited, and explanations are often tied to spirits or gods rather than understanding. When the body weakens, there is little relief. Rest is brief and shallow. Sleep comes in short stretches, often interrupted by heat, noise, or discomfort. The body never fully recovers. It only gathers enough strength to begin again the next day. Social order is strict and unchanging. Your place in society is decided early, and there is little chance to move beyond it. Farmers remain farmers. Laborers remain laborers. Power belongs to a few, and survival depends on obedience. Religion shapes every moment of life, from work to sleep, offering meaning but also demanding constant awareness of divine judgment. Even thoughts feel watched. Freedom, as we imagine it, does not exist. As the years pass in this world, the body wears down quickly. Youth fades early. Old age arrives sooner than expected. Life is not short because of drama or adventure, but because of constant strain. Most people never leave a mark on history. They live, work, sleep, and disappear quietly, just like countless others before them. The great monuments remain, but the lives that built them fade into silence. This is the quiet truth of ancient Egypt. It was a world of incredible achievement, but also relentless hardship. A world that demanded everything from the body and gave very little back in comfort. A world where surviving a single day meant accepting discomfort as normal and exhaustion as permanent. This is why you would not last a day there, not because you are weak, but because modern life has changed what the body expects from rest, safety, and ease. As you lie here now in your own time and place, notice the contrast, the stillness around you, the comfort beneath you, the safety of simply closing your eyes without fear of heat, hunger, or harm. Let that awareness soften into gratitude, but do not hold on to it too tightly. Just allow it to drift. The ancient world can now fade back into the distance. The Nile grows quiet. The sun sets low. The workers rest where they can. And the long story of human endurance continues, one generation after another, carried gently into the past. For now, remain still. Let your breathing stay slow and easy. Let the night hold you without effort. There is nothing you need to survive, nothing you need to prepare for, and nothing you need to endure. Good night, and sleep peacefully.